Hey, Pam, welcome to the His and Her Money Show.
Hello, Pam.
Hi, thank you so much for having me.
We are excited to have you on because you got a whole lot of information that's going to help out a whole lot of people that are listening and watching the show right now. So before we jump into all of your great advice, for those who are unfamiliar with Pam Andrews, can you take a moment and introduce yourself to everybody and let them know what you're all about?
Sure. So my name is Pam Andrews. Excuse me. I am a college admissions coach and I focus on scholarship strategy. I'm also the creator of In Pursuit of College board game. And what I do, I help high school students get into their dream college and secure scholarships to pay for it. Because I believe there are two yeses, the yes you got in and the yes, this is not going to break the bank. So I would just help work with families to make that process much easier so that there's more joy and less stress as they move towards their college goals.
So awesome. So you are also known affectionately as the scholarship shark, right?
I am.
So
I am.
How did you go about getting that name?
Actually, my husband gave it to me when it was actually during my son's senior year of high school as we were working through the process, because I had a process in place. So as we were working through it, it was just one day at the kitchen table. It was on Saturday because we would have scholarship Saturdays in our home. And my husband said, "You're so intense. You're so intense. You're like a shark." That's what he said. And I said, "Yeah, I'm like a scholarship shark." And then I was like, "Oh, it's kind of a name, it just sticks." So that's how I just came up with the name. So
And speaking of your son, you all went through a process that I'm sure you'll share a lot of advice from, but talk about the outcome of all the work that you all put into getting him some scholarships, something to the tune of $700,000 worth of scholarships.
That's correct. So he won over $700,000 of scholarships. And I like to share that number because what some of the questions that people should be asking, because sometimes we don't know what to ask when we hear big numbers and big dollar amounts. So he applied to 8 colleges. Not only did he get accepted into all the schools, but he also won merit award. So the money that he won was a combination of, I call it like the layering technique. So layer 1 and layer 2. So the first layer is institutional aid. So every school we made sure that, he was a competitive applicant and he would stand out with the college admissions officers so that he would not only get in, but, win as much money as he could. And then the second layer, which I think a lot of times people don't think about, that's the private money. Those are the Coca-Cola and the Nike and the Elks Club and your church and the credit union, all of those individual scholarships. So he applied for those as well. So that money is a combination of winning at all the schools where he applied, and as well as the private money that goes with you no matter where you go to school.
Awesome. So, we often hear a lot of the headlines that there are millions of dollars worth of scholarships that have basically went unused, right? So I know that a lot of times people hear that millions of dollars went unused. Is that really a reality? Like, are there really that many scholarships out there that students are not taking advantage of?
So I find, okay, so there are a large number of scholarships that are unclaimed. And I find that those are typically the smaller ones. I'll give you a great example. I was at a meeting in our area for something, and the presenter, when he was just talking about what he did, and at the end, I just connected with him around what he does, which is insurance. But as he was just asking me what I do, he said, "Oh, our fraternity, our local fraternity has a scholarship and we have no applicants." This was about a month ago. And he said, "Can you help me really get the word out with the schools?" He said, "I've already contacted the guidance counselors. Nobody's applying." And I'm like, "Are you kidding?" So this is like $1,000 to write a 250 word essay. You're pretty much, you have to really
250 words. That's it.
250 words. That's it. And then once you get in school, show proof that you actually, that you're in school. So maybe your course schedule. So a little bit of work, but we're not talking, Mount Everest here. And so I find that most of the local scholarships tend to go unclaimed because either, families don't know about them or they just, get really busy. Seniors are really busy at such a busy time period with all the social stuff going on and making that transition. So it just, unless there's somebody staying on top of them to make it happen, it just really doesn't happen. So Yeah, there are. It's true. There's money out there that just does not get awarded. So, and also I want to share too. I remember one year it was it's very similar. A sorority that had actually awarded. They wanted to award the money to a female, but there were no female applicants. So actually, a male won the award that year because they have to give the money away. It's in their budget. They've got to give it away when they meet the next quarter and report. They need to report that we awarded this money. So yeah, so I would definitely say there is money out there that students don't apply for, and so it's worth it to apply for it.
What's the gap? I feel like students that are headed to college today automatically feel like student loans are a foregone conclusion. Like that's just the way you pay for college. Is there a disconnect between the information getting to them from guidance counselors? Is it a disconnect from them seeking out the information on their own? How come the information about these scholarships, how come you have to be a shark to go out and find this information?
Yes, I think it starts with mindset. I honestly think we just live in a debt as default culture.
Mm-hmm.
And so a lot of times students will think that, it's okay just to automatically apply for student loans, that's what they assume automatically. And so I think it's important that, the guidance counselors do have information. I'll give you a great example. When I work with my clients, one of the things that I have them do is go to their guidance counselor to seek scholarships. And a lot of them they've only gone in for their academic advising, maybe to go over their course schedule, maybe to make a class change. And I said, you've got this great resource, at your fingertips that you haven't even tapped into. So either the information is not getting out or it's getting out and kids just overlook it, so I think it's important for parents to get involved. I'm a big advocate, a strong proponent of parents staying involved in the process to make sure that this actually happens. So yeah, but I think it just really goes back to thinking and mindset and that, I'll just borrow it. And I think some of that, honestly, I've got, all ages. So I think some of it starts really young. My 7-year-old, and when my kids were younger, they thought the money just spit out the ATM. They'll say, oh, just use your card, I want whatever, just use your cards. I'm like, no, that's not how it works. So, so it's training them to think about money and the way money works and how do we make money? How do we keep the money that we make and all that early on, and really having them to have some money mindset shifts, especially when it comes to college funding. Yeah.
Speaking of this process and early on, you have one in college, like you said, you have a 7-year-old, and you also have 2 that are teenagers right now, correct?
Correct.
So
yes.
You're back in the fight.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So for the rest of us parents out there who haven't gone through this or have teenagers right now, how early should you start this process? When does the college scholarship search begin?
That is such a great question. So I say that so there are 2 parts to this. There's the application and then the preparation. So when it comes to the larger dollar, the big money scholarships, that's what I call them, you can really only apply your senior year. But what you do leading up to your senior year is going to determine what you put on your application, what your resume looks like, how your essays sound. If they say, describe a time you led a project. Well, if you've never led a project, you can't talk about it. So it's important to lay a foundation, throughout high school, showing your interest. I mean, really focus on your passion and who are you? What's your story? Why do you want to make college that next step? What's the next, why do you want to learn and grow in community and pursue this major? What is it about what happened to you in life so far? But at the same time, you can start early. My kids start early. My clients start early. I love the 10th grade year for all kinds of reasons. 9th grade, they're transitioning, it's new. You've come out of middle school, high school. So you're kind of like the little fish in the big pond. Just focus on like your academic life coaching, time management, get organized, study skills, your coursework, the most rigorous courses that you can handle. So just have a great start and transition well. But 10th grade, I think, is a great time to start thinking about college planning and college advising for a couple reasons. So on the student side, you can begin to do some of your pre-test, your either your PSAT. Some schools will allow you to take it as, or some will allow them to take it as a freshman, but most will allow them to take it as a sophomore, even though it doesn't like officially count for National Merit Scholarship. But it's still really good to have a test strategy in place and to work that test taking muscle. And then you're thinking about your activities, and you've got 2 summers left to really take advantage when you don't have all that heavy course load. So I love the 10th grade year for the student side because of those reasons. But then on the parent side with the FAFSA, looking at prior, as parents, you need to think about what does our income and what do our assets look like? Because that sophomore year, I see a lot of families show up the senior year and they really get zinged in terms of, what they did 2 years prior, and that shows up on their FAFSA. Did you did you cash out a retirement plan? Did you make a purchase? I don't know, maybe purchased a second home or a vacation home so it's important in terms for families, for your couples and families who are listening to realize, whoa, what I do when my child is in the 10th grade is critical because that's going to show up on the FAFSA, the free application for federal student aid. So
that's good information. So what type of sources out there can parents start even searching for scholarships?
So a few of my favorite websites are fastweb.com. There's another one I really like, Sally Mae. Most people know them as a lender, but they also have a lot of great resources on their website. And one is, so if you go to sallymae.com/scholarships, I find that Sally Mae and FastWeb have 2 very different databases. So, and these are scholarship directories. So, you may find different things. Those are great ones. And the third one that I really like is Scholarships with an S, scholarships.com. And so you'll put your information in, who you are, your ethnicity, what do you think you want to major in, like put in as much information as you can about yourself so that it will begin to pull in some scholarships. And there's some in there for 9th graders, 10th graders, 11th graders, and now all 12th. She turned 16 this year, so she's a sophomore, but my daughter has actually won 2 scholarships, 2 national already. So, I'd say go ahead and apply, and it just helps. And then, she's building her writing skills in terms of, what are they looking for on the essays. And so it's never too early. I would say start in high school, just build it into the process with everything else.
It seems like there are a few different pieces to the process. And, if you go to one of these websites and you put your information in, you'll probably get I don't know how many results that come back. And if you're not organized, this can seem like a very overwhelming process that might make you tap out and quit. So when you coach people, talk about strategy. How do you strategize in a way that your child or even you don't become overwhelmed by this scholarship search process?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'll talk in terms of my framework. So, you see the shark and you see this big old ocean and, and you can feel really overwhelmed. And I call it SOS. So I come in, I step in as help. And the first S is really a strategy, just like you said, exactly. Because you have to have an overall plan because number one, every child is different. I mean, I've got 4 kids. My number 2 is so different from my number 1, and my 3 is different from my 2 and my 1. They're just all different. And each household is different. So it's important to have a strategy or an overall plan. Then the second part is getting organized, so that you can manage it all, stay on top of the deadlines. One of the biggest reasons why students don't win is because they simply miss the deadline because there's so much going on. So it's important to stay on top of those deadlines. And then the third S is to have a system in place so that you can I call it wash and repeat. You just do it over and over and over again. So one of the things that I love in terms of getting organized is just, I recommend that students, when I work with students, one of the first things that we do is have a separate email just for the college admissions and the scholarship process. Because otherwise your personal email, it's going to be, oh, what are you doing tomorrow night? And, oh, we've got this game. And, it can get flooded and you don't want to miss those scholarships. And I ask them to give me their email password so that I go in there as well. And I keep an eye out on things as well. Also, it's a great time. This is not when you have your fun, little email name. We keep it very, very collegiate, very, I tell them all the time, this is not too hot for you at, yahoo.com. No, we want to sound very studious because, you don't know who's reading this. And this could be their first impression. So definitely start with the email and then some kind of tracking system, whether it's a manual calendar. I have a scholarship tracker that we had created to help them manage their deadlines. So just something. But the accountability is key, whether it's a parent, a coach, a friend. If you've got a best friend and you guys both know you're college bound, say, hey, let's get together once a month if you're maybe in the 9th or 10th grade and let's work on this. Let's just sit down. Let's have some pizza. Let's work on this together and let's apply. Or even if you're just checking in, because accountability is key. Because busy kids, they just, I'll message my students throughout the week or time together between meetings. I'm like, okay, what's going on? Oh, I'm like, because I always have them tell me at the end of our coaching call, okay, so what do you commit to next week? And I make them up it a little bit more. And so when I message it throughout the middle of the week, they're like, oh, I'm studying for the AP or, the SAT subject test. I'm like, okay, well, just give me one essay. I want an essay to work on this weekend. So give me one thing. So I think the accountability is key, and sometimes moms and dads can do it, which is great. But that accountability is a big part of the entire process.
Imagine a life where your money isn't strangled by mortgage payments. Imagine what you could do when you don't have to send them money that you work so hard for. Come get simple, powerful, and real solutions to eliminating monthly mortgage payments forever. America's #1 money couple presents Crush My Mortgage. In this exclusive course, you will be equipped with strategies to help you move faster toward the promised land of owning your house free and clear. Learn strategies to help you in the areas of payment acceleration, extra income generation, and wealth creation, all to help you crush your mortgage. Visit crushmymortgage.com and get started today. Join us on the path to power, freedom, and legacy. That's crushmymortgage.com.
Any advice with helping a child deal with rejection? Maybe they, filled out an essay for a scholarship and maybe they didn't get approved. Maybe they didn't win that scholarship. How do you handle, or how do the children handle that rejection? Or how can us as parents help our children handle that better?
Or how do we handle it? So my son, applied to 147 private scholarships his senior year, 147.
Wow.
Of those, he won 6. So that's a lot of rejection. And I think I took it harder than he did, and he's very even. He has a very even temperament. And so we just learn from it. So you just realize, I think the more you do it and the more you put yourself out there, the easier it gets. But the rejection is hard, but I focus, it's reframing. And I say, you know what? It's not about you. It's not about, this is not personal. It's just, maybe something about what you presented wasn't what they were looking for, and that's okay. So I think it's just, the more you apply, it's a little bit easier because you're most likely going to get rejected probably a little bit more because you're putting more out there. But I think when they realize, that I still am who I am, this has nothing to do with me as a person, and just keep it moving. So yeah, I tend to take it a little bit harder than my kids do, honestly.
Now, you probably just had some people swerve off the road when you said
147.
He only got 6. I mean, is that
Yeah.
a typical ratio? 1. I mean, do you have to really fill out 100 and something just to get 1% of them accepted? And then 2, how in the world do you not give up? When you're filling out that, I mean, just to be, real, like if you're filling out over 100 scholarships and you're just getting rejections in the mail, way more than you're getting approvals, how do you not quit and say, you know what, Sally Mae ain't that bad?
Right. Right. So, and here's the thing too, you don't always know. Sometimes you have to go back in and see, oh, we didn't win, or follow up, because we're tracking it and saying, oh, I haven't heard back from this one. And you find out that way, sort of like, you find out because you go to the website and you're not the face on it under winner. And it's like, oh man. But so, right. So that's sometimes how we would find out. But I think, so I heard a statistic a while back, and I don't know how true it is, but for about every 10, you seem to win 1. In our case, that didn't work out that way. But I share that number because it does take, you have to keep going. You really have to keep going. Now we're Christians, we're family of faith, we're believers. So for us, what we did in our household, he had a big thermometer and we put it in the kitchen because we love to eat. We're always in the kitchen. Everything happens in the kitchen in our house. So we had it on the wall. And he had his scriptures and his faith confessions. And we were all just, as we walked by, we would just say, thank you, Lord, for, tuition being paid. And I actually have an image of it in my book where it shows like the different stages. And every time he would win, we colored in and we would get so excited. And we were like, whoa, glory to God. So even the 7-year-old, well, she wasn't 7 at the time, she was 5, but we would just get so excited and we would celebrate every win. So I think when you celebrate every win, every college acceptance, every scholarship, no matter what the dollar amount, if you make it to the next level, if you hear back that, okay, so now you made it to as a quarterfinalist, we would write that victory down and get excited and just celebrate that. So, we would just constantly celebrate. So I think celebration is so important.
Yeah, I love that. Focus on the good and not necessarily the bad. So I love that. That's being grateful. Even for those 6, that's grateful. And now your son is able to go to college. I mean, he received what?
700,000.
That's right.
I don't think you can feel rejected after that. I think that's remarkable. My goodness. What about parents that earn a high income? Can this and does this affect their child's ability to be able to receive certain scholarships?
Sure. Great question. So there's merit-based aid and there's need-based. So merit is based on the student's profile, whether it's academics or athletics or artistic, whatever, ethnicity, nationality, there are different criteria. So we'll talk about the need-based side. So that's what this speaks to more. So when it comes to need, there are certain scholarships that will say if a family if the household income is under a certain dollar amount, like the Horatio Alger is one of them, a certain dollar amount. And there are a couple in the Thurgood Marshall Foundation, you can't make over a certain dollar amount to apply. But also when it comes to need, there's what's called unmet need. So it's going to sound a little techie here. I'm going to say some letters, but I'll explain them. And so you have the cost of attendance. That's the COA. So that's the cost to attend that school. It's to tuition and the room and the board fees, all of it, everything, not just, tuition, but there's so much. So whatever that bottom line is to attend. And then it's the EFC, and that's the estimated family contribution. And that's what the federal government says that families can pay, whether they can pay it or not. But that's what, based on your FAFSA, that's the number that comes out that says, okay, based on how you completed this form 2 years, based on your the tax information 2 years prior and your current savings account and all this other stuff. It gives you that number right away on your student aid report. So whatever that number is. So you subtract that from the cost of attendance. That difference is called unmet need. And I say this is important because, there are certain variables. Cost of attendance is a variable. Cost at one school may be $50,000, at another school it could be $25,000, at another school it could be $70,000. But your EFC is fixed. So that number is what it is. So that's, so the difference could be high at one school and lower at another. And this is where strategy comes into play, because some schools that have a high cost of attendance are very generous when it comes to their aid, when it comes to scholarships and grants, money that you don't have to pay back. And so that's important for families to understand. So you may qualify for aid. And when I say aid, in this case, I don't mean loans, because financial aid includes student loans, work study, scholarships, and grants. I'm just talking about free money, money that you don't have to pay back. That, you may, even though you may have a high income, if you're going to a school that has a higher price tag, then your unmet need is going to be a little bit higher. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yes. Okay. Good. So it's important to not shy away. I tell families, and that's also why that 10th grade year is important, because you can use the FAFSA forecaster. And I'll send you these, so you can include the links in your show notes. But that way you can estimate, at the end of their 10th grade year, so maybe January, once you finish your taxes, and say, oh, okay, this is what we can kind of expect our EFC to look like, so we know what we're working with. So again, there is money out there for families who to incomes, and, they own their own home, and, maybe they're not first generation. And that's our situation. My son is third generation. My parents went to college. They met in college. My husband and I went to college. So college is just what you do around here. That's like a non-negotiable. That's just that you're like, unless you've got some great business idea, you're going to go to college. So, and they all want to go. So, so I say that to say, don't shy away, have a plan. Strategy is so critical, because then you're working from a blueprint, and you kind of know where you're going and what's next and what needs to happen and how you can make it all happen.
So as a first-time parent, prior to your son going to college, where did you gain all this knowledge? I'm sure that there's a lot of parents, this feels very intimidating to them. And maybe the His and Her Money Show wasn't available then for them to listen to your show or your podcast. But how did you even get your start? How did you literally put one foot in front of the other and you just kept going?
Great question. So my husband and I met years ago in youth ministry. He was a youth pastor at a church, and that's how we met. And so we met pretty much out of college for me. And so right out of college, I started working with just on my own. As a single woman out of college, I would do college tours and help students fill out the financial aid paperwork and apply. So, because I knew the value of a college education. And so I really got my start when the church we attended. And so a lot of those, they're not young people anymore. They were young and in our wedding years ago, but now they're a little bit older and they have their littles. And so so they were the ones that I worked with and didn't realize I was developing a framework and a formula to make it happen. So that's why when it came time for my son, I told him, I said, listen, I know exactly what you need to do. If you will work with me, we can make this happen. Well, he didn't know. He didn't have a choice, because I'm the mama. So he was going to work with me either way. At the end of the day, you can do this with, smiling, or we're going to get this done. But so I knew what to do. I knew exactly what needed to be done. So that's what happened. So.
Gotcha.
Now, you kind of touched on there. You mentioned the term, giving your kids a college-ready mindset. How do you develop a college-ready mindset in your kids prior to them getting there?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think it's just like any other money mindset. It's just conversations early on, whether it's in the kitchen or the car. When you have so I have cousins whose kids are a little bit ahead of my kids, I would always have them write them, in college. And I thought this is a fun way to connect with your cousins and keep in contact. So doing that. Another thing we do, if you live in a college town, we live in a town, we have a university not too far from us. So we would go to college football games or a lacrosse game, or just, do something on that college campus. There are always workshops on college campuses, art museums, activities, summer programs. But I think the big thing, like any other money talk that you have to have with your kids, talk about college. So we just talk to our kids about, their goals and really kind of mastering your passion and what does it take and what's the learning and, who is there to guide you and lead you. And so we just always talk to them about it and just help them think, this is the next thing for us to do. So let's get prepared and do what we need to do now as high schoolers.
Can you talk to us about AP classes and dual enrollment programs and what they are and how this helps our kids prepare for college?
Sure. So AP, that's the advanced placement classes. They're under the College Board, who also administers the SAT. And I'll talk about dual enrollment separately. So in most high schools, when you have your courses, you have like your regular courses and then maybe honors courses and then maybe AP courses. So AP, when you take an AP course, it's an opportunity for the student to demonstrate that I can handle college level coursework. So they have this much more rigorous class schedule, maybe some projects and, all this work. And then at the end in the spring, you take the AP exam. I always tell students, don't just take an AP class, because one of the things that taking it will do is weight your GPA. So where you may score something on a 4.0 scale, if you take a regular, when you do an honors or AP, schools are going to weight it on a 5.0 scale. So this is why you may see students with like a 4.3 or 4.6, something like that, because they've taken maybe AP or honors courses as high school students. But they need to also know that, okay, so in the spring, you're going to also take the AP exam, because you don't want to just take the AP course and you don't take that exam. And so you need to prepare for that. So it's a great way to demonstrate that I can handle college level coursework, and it's a great way to again, not just boost your academic profile when you're applying, but to see, okay, yeah, I can really handle this. I can do this. Now, dual enrollment. A lot of high schools have it, and depends on your state. Some are free. Some states have it for free. Some are very low cost. Some build them in easily into their schools. Some you can just do it on your own. But it allows you to take college courses, and it's kind of like 2 for 1. So you'll get high school credit, and you'll also earn college credit. So for instance, both of my kids my oldest and my next up have done dual enrollment. So my oldest did dual enrollment because he wanted to transfer in a lot of his liberal arts classes so that he could lighten his load when it got a little more intense, or jump into his minor. My next up, my 16-year-old, she wants to be finished. She wants to get in and out of college because I have to tell you about her plans, but she wants to get in and out. And so she wants to transfer in. And so she will actually graduate from high school with an associate's degree. So it's not uncommon. There are some early college programs where kids are taking college level courses as high school students, and they graduate with enough credits to, earn an associate's degree. And then there are some who just do it because they just want to, maybe there's something that it's not offered at their school. Maybe, I don't know, some photography or equine studies or something like that. It's just something very interesting, or forensics. And they're like, wow, I can take this. My school will allow me to take it as a high school, or at the community college or our local college, and I can get credit. So that's what dual enrollment is. So you get college credit that will stay with you. And it's important for kids to understand that, this is a part of your permanent record. This is your college transcript. So do well. Don't just say, I'm going to take all these college credits. No, take what you can take, but really, work to do your best in them. And then, so you can either just do it to pick up 1 or 2 classes, or, you may, if you map it out, sit down with your guidance counselor, say, okay, I really want to graduate with my associate's degree. How can I make that happen as well?
So if you go to your guidance counselor and they have the program at your child's high school, then they'll help you get started. But you also mentioned, like, if the high school that your child goes to doesn't have it, you could do it on your own. So my question would be, how do you do it on your own? And then how early should you start? Should this be something you do, again, starting sophomore year, or when do high school students start taking college classes during these programs?
Yep. So I'm going to send you another link as well. Every state is very different in terms of the program is free and the colleges and all that good stuff. But let's say if your school doesn't offer it, if you've got a local community college, go right to that community college. Most of them have it right on their website to see if there's a dual enrollment program, and just go in. And they're typically, they're very low cost. It's a great way to get college credits knocked out at like a fraction of the cost. So families can just go ahead and pursue it on their own, and go ahead and maybe do it in the summer, or do it because most of them are online. So you can build it around you're doing class during the day, and you can just work on it, evenings and weekends, or, maybe that's like a trimester during your Christmas break, you can knock out a class or 2. So it is an option. I have a client in Georgia, and she's actually doing dual enrollment. All her classes this year were actually through her college. And so she will earn a significant amount of credits as a high school senior, and that she's transferring in to her first year of school. So she doesn't have to do like some of the basic, the math and the English. She was able to test out of those.
So awesome. So since there's a lot of universities out there, a lot of colleges pretty much for children or kids to choose from, how do you get your children to narrow down their list, and which school do they choose?
Yeah, that's why visiting is so good. Sometimes even if you don't know where you want to go, knowing what you don't like is just as valuable as what you do like. So, some of the factors are size, program, does it offer what I'm interested in? What kind of academic support? If your child may need a little extra support, does this campus have a great supportive environment? I always think as a parent, career services is really important, because at the end of all this, I want you to have a job. So I'm always asking the career services questions, and I want to know, what does it look like? Who are you bringing on campus? Who's recruiting, from your college? So I think that's very important. So I think important for kids to step foot on a campus, get a feel that, you can see it in a brochure, but there's nothing like walking and taking a look at the greens and, looking in the classrooms and the lecture halls and saying, yeah, I can really see myself here. Another thing that I really think is important, and then probably around definitely maybe their junior year at the latest, is take advantage of a summer pre-college program where you're actually on campus. And most pre-college programs, some of the great ones, will actually allow you to earn college credits that will transfer if you go to that school. So you're paying, you're taking college credits, you most likely have the professors or an adjunct professor or associate professor, and you're sitting in there and you're getting to know, you're seeing whether or not this is where you want to be. And we had our son do that because we told him, and they tend to be a little bit pricey. His pre-college program was $5,000, but at the time we said, we'd rather invest the $5,000 now and, than to have you transfer out, because it's just not, because it's 16 hours away. You may think you want to go there, but, something happens. You're like, oh, this is too far. It's not what I wanted. So, but, yeah. So in terms of finding a nice fit, I would start with the academic program. Does it have what I'm looking to do? What do people in my major do after? I look at employment data as a parent. My son doesn't look at that. None of my kids could care about the employment data, but I do as a parent, So where are the graduates 6 months out? That's really important. I look at just, again, some of the class size, knowing each kid. I know my son needed a smaller private school, and I know my daughter would probably like something larger. So it's saying, okay, so where will they thrive? What kind of environment? And then I also, this is kind of like an extra mom tip, but once we visit, I love to just ride around the community. What's in the neighborhood, what's in the community. For us, we wanted to find a good local church for our son, so that when he found a way he could find, he could just get connected early in a community of faith and and that was important to us. So, finding out a barber, he needed a great barber. We're like, okay, so where's the barber here? Not that he goes, we saw him Christmas, his first year, we're like, whoa, you went a whole semester without a haircut. Yeah. So, but definitely in terms of I think start with the major, the program, the employment data is very important. And then have your student, do a college visit and ask them, do you see yourself here? And they can kind of tell whether or not they like it. Visiting is everything. And then depending upon where you live, if you're used to certain weather and you're looking at a school and, and it has different weather, go during the worst weather. If you live in maybe Florida and you're looking at a school in Michigan or Chicago, go when it's cold and it's windy and it's rainy, because if you're walking across campus, you need to know okay, yeah, I can do this during this time of the year. So I think it's important to look when it's, beautiful and ideal, and also when, kind of every day, this is what I'm going to be experiencing for the next 4 years.
And I know college fairs are a good resource to find out about, a bunch of different colleges in one location, but are they also a good source to find scholarship opportunities?
They can be. And it depends. So I have visited a couple college fairs where there were tables and vendors available, that talked about scholarships. So they can be. Most of them just do have, just rows and rows of the schools. But I always, when I go, so I'm going for two reasons. When I go, I'm going because I've got my mom hat on, then I have my professional hat on. And so I'm always asking right away, what's your merit aid and what does it take to get it? Because I want to know, as I'm working with my students, if they're interested in a certain school, or if I'm thinking about a school for them to consider as we're building their list, then this is what you need to do to get the money. So when you go into the college fair, again, have a plan. And that's why doing it many times. Do it your first year because it's overwhelming. It's a lot of rows and tables and, just walk the back and forth and gather brochures, and schools, ask about their programs, ask about the money. But then as you begin to really narrow down, you really want to, as parents, ask those questions about the money and what does it take to get it? What does it take to keep it? Because keeping it is just as important, and I think students don't focus on that as well. Find out if you're going to earn a merit award, find out what is the GPA or what are the requirements to keep it. Sometimes it's a 3.0 or 3.5 and you have to say, okay, can you really do this? And so making sure that they understand what needs to be done to keep the money that they have.
Are there any scholarship opportunities out there for adults that may be either looking to continue their or further their education or maybe even begin it?
There are. There are. And those directories will also have those as well. And then you can also, so the financial aid office where you're going is always a great source of information. So letting the financial aid office know that you're interested in funding your college education with scholarships, they should be able to provide you with great resources. So that, yep, but there definitely are.
Now, you also created a pretty cool board game that helps families get ready for this process and do it successfully. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Sure. Yes. It's called In Pursuit of College. And I created it. I was doing it with my kids kind of in a informal way and thought, oh, wow, other families might really enjoy this. So I created the board game. And it's really designed to teach kids in just a fun way. And it's a family game, just what it's like to get into college and some of the choices that need to be made and some of the scholarships you can win. And here's a fun fact. So in the game, there's over $100,000 in scholarships, because when you draw a scholarship card, here's the mom in me, right? It's sort of like, if you're going to do something, you might as well get something extra out of it. So I didn't make up names on the scholarship cards. These are actual scholarships with the dollar amounts and the websites. So they could just, crack open the pack of scholarship cards and, find one, two. And I have them ranging from 6th grade all the way through 12th grade. So it's a good mix of scholarships as well. So, yeah, but it's just a fun way for families to play and understand, what it takes as you pursue college.
That's awesome. So where can people grab a board game, as well as how can they stay in touch with you and follow you?
Absolutely. So, excuse me. So you can get the board game off my website at thescholarshipshark.com. And my website is thescholarshipshark.com. I'm on Facebook at Scholarship Shark, and I'm on Instagram at the Scholarship Shark. And I'm also on Twitter as well. I don't tweet as much, but mostly Facebook. And I'm also a podcaster. So I do have the Scholarship Shark podcast, and you'll see a little shark with the money coming out of his mouth. So
Pam, this has been incredible. You've laid out a whole lot for us to think about and execute. And we really appreciate you taking time to break all of this great information down for us. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
My pleasure. Thank you. Thank you.